Okay, so people want to know how to draw, and this is the technique that I use for everything that I draw, is I sort of pick out shapes. So if I'm drawing on top of this picture, you see a circle here, and then I would split that in the middle, and that's where I would start my nose. So you see that circle, and then you would have another circle on top. So you'd have two circles that I see immediately when I look at the new Grinch, the new cartoon that's coming out. So I can undo that, but I wanted you to kind of see that. I guess I could actually leave that for you guys. So there's sort of where I would cross that up higher. So I always cross it where the nose starts, and and then I have that circle up here. So when I start my drawing over here, that's what I'll do. Circle, cross, and cross it higher. And I usually always start with the nose. So in this sense, I am looking at the shape of the nose, which is kind of like this. And that's basically everything that I'm drawing is I'm looking at shapes and the coordinations or coordinates of where that shape lands. So you're not going to know like exactly how far to go down to like the nose, but it's sort of like measuring with your eyes. So you can also come over here and do the same sort of thing. So just by feel, okay, the nose is probably, or the mouth is probably that far down. And how does this line go down and away? Also, where is that nose a coordinate to that? So you can do stuff like this as well. I have this on another layer, so I can always erase this over here with the Grinch on the actual picture. And then I can come over here as well and go like that if I want to. So you kind of have two diagonal lines coming down, forming his mouth, just using that as a guide. So he's got basically a straight line. And then how is this? It's kind of like that. So then I kind of put the lip in, or I do put the lip in, and that's comes up a little bit from there and comes up a little bit over here, and then I form that coming down. So it's basically his bottom lip and then you can kind of zoom out and see. So I do the features first. So this kind of comes up a little bit, this comes up a little bit. Again, measuring with my eyes, and now putting in his eyes. Okay, so you can do stuff like that with putting a picture. So some people kind of like draw like a whole like lines and stuff, and they kind of say, okay, this line falls on that. So this is kind of a simpler way of doing that. They map out a whole section of lines like this, and they go, okay, that's falling in that. They do the same thing over on their picture that they're copying from. So how I do is I just start with a circle and then start with features. You can do this with real portraits of people. So I'm just forming this shape here that I see for the eye, and then inside the eye, or his eyeball looks like that, and then inside. So these are all just like half circles, which gives me his. So from there, usually it's like straight over a little bit, straight over a little bit. and you can start forming your other eye. So hopefully this helps you a little bit in sort of mapping out your character that you're drawing. You kind of want to have these all sort of the same as well, the eyes. You could draw these on different layers and then like flip the eye if you wanted to. So this eyeball is kind of close to the edge of his eye. And then you also want to make sure that the eyes are pretty much the same size when we look at them. So what I do is I kind of just, it's all by feel. Again, you could, what you could do is sort of draw those on different layers so they're the same size. Or you could draw the, kind of trace over this eye if you wanted to on a different layer and then move it over. There's a move tool up there. So already in 6 minutes, we've kind of got our character drawn. And then the rest is adding the rest of the features. And when you're sketching, I've talked about this before, where it's just sort of like quick, getting a sketch down where everything is, like what place everything is in. And then I was thinking about that today. I was like, okay, I sketch, and then after the sketch, I go into like lining. After lining or outlining, I then go into color. So the first sketch is like a rough draft of your drawing, but getting everything kind of in place where you want. It's like if you're writing a paper, it's your rough draft. So this is okay to make a whole bunch of lines just to get where you want to go. And you can also look at the Grinch as like, okay, he has sort of like this pear-shaped head. That's like a pear, basically, the fruit. So when I'm thinking of that shape. So you don't just go into drawing the details immediately. You want to map out the features. How far is this coordinating to down there? So I think if you're planning out your drawing, like if you have a printer, sort of print out that drawing that you're going to be drawing and then draw on it. Kind of like if you're taking notes of something. And these are just like, I'm just making a whole bunch of lines because that's kind of, the Grinch is like furry. I don't even know what the Grinch is, what kind of animal or whatever he is. And this is going to come out a little bit more up there. Yeah, 1 second. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so then from there we'll come up. Again, how far is this? It's like a little bit, and then it starts curving. I know people might say, oh, you make it look easy. Well, it's just years of practice, years of drawing and drawing and drawing. And you can go into your drawing a little bit more and kind of form it. I said rough draft, and then you're just kind of working at it. So how big is his neck? It comes down. Outside of that circle. sort of his neck here, this line coordinating to that, a little bit of a diagonal there. Same with this line kind of comes straight down, so his neck probably be over here. But I see from this picture that his neck is very thin, so I might shrink that neck down a little bit. It's probably about that. So this mouth might be a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be, but that's okay. And then how far is this line to that? That seems about right, to the side of his face. It's okay to mark this up because you're going to put another layer on top of this. So I can go up here and put a new layer. And then I switch back to the other layer. So again, the sketch is very quick. Try to make it quick, just to kind of get your idea down. Kind of if you're taking notes on something, it's not going to be like every word. So think of a sketch like that as well. It's just putting lines in where we're going to put color. And then again, looking at it, making sure I have, again, this over here. And that might come in a little bit more. And then this little hair coming up, the distance between that looks about right. It's all in just like looking at things. This is a piece that I probably won't outline in black because it's a digital creation. They created that with a computer. So I'm gonna use the colors that they've used. And then his body kind of comes down in. So I already see in like 12 minutes we've sketched out what the Grinch looks like, what he's going to look like. I'm just using the sketching HB pencil. It's kind of light. You can increase the intensity. I kind of have it toned down a little bit. So we're up to his, again, just looking at the shapes that everything makes and lines and which direction they're kind of moving in. So I know that that goes up and out. So there's the Grinch. Quick little tutorial on how I did that, how I mapped it out. The neck still looks a little too thick, but so now what I would do is I'd go into inking on a different layer. So this is the whole layer here. And it's whatever you want to start with. This is something where we'd have to do a lot of switching between colors because it's not outlined in black. I'm going to switch to inking. Oops, that's a little too big. And the size is a little too big, so. sort of like a round black on his eye there, outline. And then he's got like green eyes for the Grinch. So I'll put his green eyes in. And then it's black inside. But then like a few little lines are coming out of that for his eye. So this will all be black. And I'll bring down the line to be little lines coming out side of the eye. Something like that. I think he's got some sort of different colors going on in his eye, so dark to light. You see that from the color picker, so I want to make sure we represent that as well. When you're doing color, you gotta just not do like a solid color, but transition when colors are, when like light hits color, it's going to be like a lighter shade of that color. So you have to keep that in mind. And he just has like a little white catch light in his eye. I can't select it though. There it is. Something like that. From there, I'll go into the white for his eye. I'll outline the whole thing in white, but then it's like a little bit of yellow coming off of that as well. So I'm filling this all in. I need like more of a white. I guess that's what we're gonna get. I definitely feel like this eye is too big because I have that dark area that has to. I have to do this dark area here that needs to be put in. I don't think that's the right color though. I think it's got to be like black. I don't know why that's not selecting black. Alright, there we go. So I'm gonna do the nose now. Um, I might start with the like lighter color and then sort of layer that. So you see we did the eye. I'm still not done with it. It's just sort of like preliminary. Um, I actually wanted this on this layer. And I'm going to use inking. Kind of fill that in with that sort of color. You see that color right there. And then everything else is sort of details on the edge. So you can do that with like layering, sort of start with a lighter color and then layer on top of that with the darker colors you see. So now I can grab, so I might make like some lines coming up and over. So it's just important to know your tools and what brush you're going to use, like looking at each thing and how much you're going to put on each thing. Like this down here was like a little bit darker. These pieces are a little bit more challenging because there's a lot going on, or it's a digital creation. So it's, although we were working with Simpsons last night, that was cool. I thought that was coming out good. There was a little bit of detail there too. I'm gonna take a airbrush, kind of give this some shading. Maybe a little bit more. So you see that just from taking the airbrush and the ink, what is that one called? Inking technical pen, was sort of easy, or we were able to make something that's starting to look realistic. Then he's got all these like little dots going on, so you could take we did find a brush last night that was like dots, or you could just do it yourself, like a snow brush if you wanted to. Speckles like that. Or you can make them yourself with inking and maybe turn down the opacity. So I zoom in and I zoom out just to see what it's looking like. feel like there's like a lot of it going on. Okay, that seems pretty good. I'm gonna grab like the lighter color in there to give the nose some sort of shine. So airbrush. I might put that behind. Can I put that behind or only on top? I may have to redraw some of those dots. I kind of want to have a lighter color. See like a little bit of a shine. I might put some white in the middle of that though too to give it a shine of some sort. Kind of wanted to add a little blur to that just to soften it up a little bit. Yeah. I'm going to change the background to something so I can. Yesterday we turned it into a color so we could see the progress. Hang on 1 second. Alright, back to it. I was gonna put this sort of color behind the nose. Let me grab a bigger brush. So there's sort of that shine going on behind his nose that you see in the picture. We can always layer over that. And then what I do, instead of just like drawing all the lines first, I'm gonna just do the shine like I see then the color behind that. So then I'll add a new layer behind that and do his green. Again, I'm using the airbrushing tool. And then I'll do this yellow up here. So that's the greatest thing about when you're doing digital, you can just like do colors and then do the detail on top of it. So bring this brush down. I think you can do that in like painting and stuff like that. You're sort of doing layers. But you see just in, 30 minutes, sort of this Grinch come to life from sketch to color. It's not done, but probably would take me, I don't know, 2-3 hours to do this piece. It is a lot of detail just for one character. So that's why companies that animate, they do they draw the character on a digital platform, but they can move certain things about that character. Pinch his eyes down, make him blink easier than drawing it over and over again. Let me put his, I'll bring this up. So everything's sort of like blended into, you see how I'm like blending it into one. That's why I put it on different layers. That's actually too dark. I think just like here is where you want to kind of grab the base layer to that. You don't want to make it too dark. You want to leave a little bit because you got to put those lines in there to do the face. Probably make this whole thing yellow up here and then go over it. Can put his Grinchy mouth in. And use the inking. So that if you're bringing in the picture, then you can select each. That's the wrong color, actually. I can fill that in. So there's his sort of mouth. I think that's a little too big, actually. Let's go back. Kind of goes over and then down. So it's like up here, over, and then down. I think that's a little bit better. Alright, there we go. Sort of pulled down on one side. And then I'll do these lines. Again, you might do like a preliminary, just lines first. Actually, I might use 2 fingers undoes what you did. I might use like an airbrush, but a smaller. Looks a little blurry. Smaller than that. And then I gotta get this white in here. This kind of gives it that little bit of a realistic look to his mouth with the. That's kind of why I use the blurrier brush or the airbrush. Okay, let me do his eyes or his eye. Go back up to his eye. How am I gonna do this? I might just do like these, like and then go over it dark. I don't really like. I just kind of improvise a little bit sometimes. Like I make sure that that's how I want it. I do want this like kind of all like that because it's gonna be the combination of this color with the black that makes the eyebrows like that. But I need to have like a base of some sort. So I think that comes to my next point is like when you're drawing things, don't be afraid to kind of add your own little twist or your own like I'm not following along with the eyebrows because you might get frustrated with, so I'm kind of just adding and then kind of look back at it and go, okay, that looks pretty good. So I would say do that when you're drawing as well. It's kind of like moving the pencil over different things and kind of just letting it draw itself, if that makes sense. He's got these big bushy eyebrows. So you already see, like we've been saying before, this character's coming to life before our eyes. I might do like a base for his eye. Again, starting with like the lighter color. So you can always go over it with darker. a darker color. I think the white's like right about there. But just have fun with the piece that you're drawing. I think this will be a nice finished piece. I can show you the one we worked on last night was the Home Alone piece. Bard and Sideshow Bob and Mr. Burns from last night. It's the Home Alone. Now I'm kind of working on this a little bit. Kind of show you what goes into a drawing and kind of how I approach each drawing. Everything's like slightly different, but it's going back to knowing your tools that you're using. I'm going to finish this eye and then we'll probably end the stream just for now. That's kind of what you can accomplish in an hour or so. Let me grab the black. Just like, I'm trying to compare drawing to different things. You're definitely creating something, like a dance or something, as you draw. But, I can cover things over, which is nice. So I always try to start with like the lighter and then go darker. I think it's easier on like a piece like this because you can kind of set the background and then see where if you're just drawing on a white sheet of paper, that's kind of why they have like the tone tan papers and stuff. So you don't always have to just put like a dark color on something. But I think the biggest thing is don't get frustrated when you're drawing because it all takes time. It's going to take time to flesh out the final piece. So like I said, we've been sitting here for an hour and it's not done. I'm not getting frustrated. I know I'll finish it. So remember that when you're drawing. That's why you start with a sketch. If you like the sketch, then you can kind of move into the inking process. I'm just going to fill this all the way in. I think that's what's different about the digital creation is like, because I made that green, I can put a color on top of that. I can put like a lighter color, which wouldn't work in real life. I mean, if you have something that's already dark, that's why I always say start with the lighter colors. So there's the Grinch for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you learned something from that. I think it came out good so far. Just kind of wanted to throw something down and show you how I approach sketching. We went over the circles and the lines and correlations, and so I would say definitely print out a piece of paper if you're drawing something, so you can mark on it and put lines like I did over here. I can always erase those lines. It's on this layer, so I can go in there and erase them if I want to. there's not too much left. You see, I have all my colors kind of laid down, and you know these lines will be next. Adding the lines to them. It's not like a ton left. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification that will notify you when I go live. Hit the like button, comment, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.